So net neutrality isn't even dead yet, but companies like Comcast, the third highest spender of net neutrality lobbying in the country, is already planning to profit off of the death of net neutrality. Now, this shouldn't surprise anyone, but just how quickly they're moving is a little bit surprising to me, because I thought they would have been a little bit more subtle, because they don't want to arouse too much suspicion and piss off too many people, but they don't care. They are hitting the ground running as soon as net neutrality is repealed. So in an article for Ars Technica, John Brodkin explains that Comcast is already hinting that they'll be incorporating a plan for paid fast lanes as opposed to throttling. So it seems like they're going to get their feet wet before diving in. So rather than throttling websites that they don't like, they are going to introduce fast lanes. This is what the FCC tried to do in 2014, but we stopped them because this still violates the principle of net neutrality. So here they are telling us that we're going to test fast lanes out, and it's going to make them a lot of money. And when that works for them, then they're going to probably try throttling. I mean, this is not going to happen all immediately, but nonetheless, this will all most likely come to fruition within 5 years. Now, John Brodkin reports that for years, Comcast has been promising that it won't violate the principles of net neutrality, regardless of whether the government imposes any net neutrality rules. That meant that Comcast wouldn't block or throttle lawful internet traffic, and that it wouldn't create fast lanes in order to collect tolls from web companies that want priority access over the Comcast network. This was one of the ways in which Comcast argued that the Federal Communications Commission should not reclassify broadband providers as common carriers, a designation that forces ISPs to treat customers fairly in other ways. The Title II common carrier classification that makes net neutrality rules enforceable isn't necessary because ISPs won't violate net neutrality principles anyway, Comcast and other ISPs have claimed. It's funny how they're still lobbying against it, but anyways. But with Republican Ajit Pai now in charge at the Federal Communications Commission, Comcast's stance has changed. While the company still says it won't block or throttle internet content, it has dropped its promise about not instituting paid prioritization. Instead, Comcast now vaguely says that it won't discriminate against lawful content or impose anti-competitive paid prioritization. The change in wording suggests that Comcast may offer paid fast lanes to websites or other online services such as video streaming providers after Pai's FCC eliminates the net neutrality rules next month. With no FCC rules against paid fast lanes, it would be up to Comcast to decide whether any specific prioritization deal is anti-competitive. So yeah, this is literally the least surprising news ever. Who was one of the first companies to violate net neutrality? It was Comcast. So I don't know if you all remember this, but I remember this. Back in 2014, Comcast was throttling Netflix. It was very apparent because all of a sudden, you couldn't get through a single episode without a buffering symbol. And it really, a couple of times I just gave up. Now, this didn't happen all the time, but it was subtle. You definitely noticed it. And it turns out Comcast was throttling Netflix, who's their competitor. And also, once Netflix paid Comcast a fee, all of a sudden their internet speeds improved and they were faster than ever. So Comcast, they are lying. And when they say that they're not going to block or throttle content, they're not signing a contract with us. They're just saying that right now so that way we don't make too much noise about the repeal of net neutrality, but we all know exactly what's going to happen. So they're currently still, I believe they have some order signed until September of 2018, so they probably can't do anything until then, but best believe that they're going to move pretty quickly to start rolling back net neutrality. Now, again, it will probably be subtle. I don't think they're going to do this right away, but they will do this. They'll start rolling out new, cheaper internet plans with limited options, so you get access to Facebook and Twitter and social media, and they'll call this maybe the communications package and offer this for $20 a month, and then they'll start offering other packages. Well, if you want to add on to that, you can add video for another $5 a month, and it's just the beginning. I can't even begin to imagine all the negative consequences that will come to fruition after net neutrality is repealed. But I do know that we need it because in countries without net neutrality, like Mexico, the internet looks awful. It looks exactly like TV packages look in the United States. So this is not surprising, but understand that when Comcast does this, we have to be vigilant. So what Comcast probably knows is that once the FCC does vote to kill net neutrality on December 14th, and they're almost certainly going to do that, short of a miracle, Comcast knows that the attention will be shifted away from the FCC and onto them, and they know that people will start to complain the minute they see any fuckery. So Comcast is going to be very subtle, but they're still hinting, hey, we're going to offer fast lanes. How great would that be for the consumers? Look, net neutrality is important, and these companies that are lobbying to kill net neutrality, like Comcast, of course they're going to violate net neutrality. So again, this is the least surprising news ever, but we still have to be aware of what they're doing because it's wrong, and we have to put pressure on them to stop, because if we can't stop the FCC, then we need to make sure that companies like Comcast, Verizon, and AT&T know that we're not going to tolerate any throttling or paid prioritization.
Support this podcast by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Humanist Report.